Hi, everybody. It's Gail Minogue again. Thanks for tuning in and listening to me. I really appreciate your being there. And I try to really give you something meaty that you can use in your everyday life. So today I wanted to speak to you about the effects of COVID, not from the point of that who's going to get it or what should we do with masks or vaccines. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking now that it's happened and that we seem to be going beyond it and coming out of it. Where's the shakeout? What can we expect going forward the rest of 22, 23, 24 as this begins to fade? And it's affected the workplace. It's affected all the internal systems, particularly here in the United States, but it's affected the systems worldwide. But the United States needed a lot of transformation, shall we say. So this COVID was almost like a tool to expose these transformations that need to take place, the changes that need to take place. So they have, and they still are. And that's why you see tremendous backlash from a certain portion of the American society that doesn't want to move forward, that wants to stay white, it wants to stay Christian, and it wants to go back to the 50s. And it doesn't want all this change and transformation. Whether we like it or not, it's still going forward. And the interesting thing too, and I'm anti-abortion or pro-abortion or whatever, the thing about it is going to get resolved. You can have all these states' laws and everything. This is another thing that's coming out of this going forward, where we have the extreme in Texas with the vigilante laws. You have the drug 486, you can get in the mail order, and people can get this and do their own abortions in the safety of their home up to so many weeks. So it's somewhat going to take a lot of the starch and the heat out of these anti-abortion protests, because it's and so the undermining too of the workplace. Let's face it, folks, we had a lot of jobs that were pretty awful, and what I will use the word crappy jobs. Working in these low-paid, sort of abusive situations as either a wait person, like a waiter or waitress or whatever, a wait person, to stocking shelves, to having to be working in the warehouse at Amazon. This is a modern feudal system, and so we have workplaces that had to change. And so what you have as a result of COVID, and what it did was it got rid of a lot of jobs, and a lot of workers don't want to go back and do these crappy jobs, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't either. So we have a shortage of workers, and we're also not allowing immigrants to come in very much, so we don't have a lot of that lower pay beginner condition. And so all the workplace is going to be evolving over the next few years, all in 22, and 23, 24, and a lot of these working conditions will not be allowed to come back, and people just won't accept them. So they won't show up for these work. First of all, they are finding there's openings in other jobs that are needed, so they'll go there. And you'll find as a result of these changes in the working situations, you're going to find that we're going to be filled, some of these jobs will be filled by mechanization, robots, but also more using high tech to replace, say, that worker. And this is going to take time. So all of 22 is a transition period from what we had prior to COVID to where we go now forward. Is what COVID was a tool. It broke up a lot of old ways around the world, showed you where all the dirt is and the bad places. It shed light. It was the sunshine tool to shine light on the aspects that are not working in a society, and in particularly honed into the United States, because the United States was going through its first Pluto return. What is that? What is a Pluto return? Well, the United States means that it revisits the conditions of the Revolutionary War period, what started and what it was like after, and going back to the original purpose of the whole country. And so it would be much harder on the United States through this period than, say, how it would affect other countries. So the United States is in internal turmoil right now. And you have these, again, outliers who are loud, noisy, will say anything and will spread it through social media. And so we have these conditions where a lot of these are just going to get out of date in a couple more years, because this Pluto return will end in 2024, and everything really got to, you see the culmination of these changes of 2020 and 21 and 22, 23 and 24. Because that's when the curtain comes down on this horrible harshness, the crudeness. It's like Diogenes in the ancient days of Greek, looking for the honest man. He went around with a lantern in his hand, looking for the honest man. Where is it? And so it's like, well, we need a lantern now. We need another Diogenes who will go around and looking for the gracious person, because it's become rude, crude, loud, and lying. Just, as the word was, alternative facts. So we have to go through this period. It's going to be all of 22, all of 23, and a lot of 24 before this is done. So what are we going to see? We're going to see a change, continuous change in the workplace. We're going to see changes in breaking up some corporations that have had the power to control large sections of society. If you look at industries in the United States, you're going to see that almost every industry is controlled by 4 corporations, whether it's banking, aircraft, you name it. It's 4 across the board. Right now it's the meat. We have inflation, and we have high inflation. You find out that 4 meat packing or meat companies processing control the meat industry. Not the farmers, but the meat processors like Tyson or McGill or whatever. Not McGill, I forget the name, it starts with an M. But it's a lot of these companies controlled. So it's across the board in each industry. 4 banks control the banking. So the breakdown, the exposure is what you're going to see 22, 23, 24 continuing. COVID is fading as long as you do not get another variant. That is why through this period, 22, 23, 24, we have to get the world vaccinated. So, and there's such a hoopla here, it's ridiculous, because what it does is it allows another variant to get loose. So we need to vaccinate, say, Africa and other parts of the world that did not get vaccinated and help them distribute it. And we will get back to, particularly after 2024, a more reasoned, rational, enlightened thinking where we begin to use the mind. We're still we're still going back to the Revolutionary War, very uncivilized, somewhat barbaric in our behavior. If you want any proof of that, just look at January 6th, sort of like barbarians at the gate. They give it different names, but basically it's barbarians at the gate, trying to climb the wall of the castle, and trying to enter and change the system. So the United States, being the catalyst of the world, has to go through this now, this transformative period till 2024. So it affects the marketplace. It affects the supply chain. So you have high interest rates, you have high inflation, you're going to have high interest rates. They've been too low for too long. And it's brought on a lot of this conditions in the marketplace with the supply chain. So the supply chain and the inflation you can expect to continue in 2022. Second half ease up a bit on the supply chain as that gets better, but inflation continues all through 22. So and that means you have volatility for those of you who are in the markets, volatility all over the place. So be careful. The other thing I would suggest in 22, 23 is to be conservative in your monies. If you don't need it, don't buy it. Don't spend it. So it's what, there's an expression somebody said the other day, which I thought was very good. Do more with less. Do more with less. So that means you get creative in how you now spend your money. Invest your money in things and people, etc., rather than just spend it on things and people. Okay, is this a good investment? Maybe not. Is this a good investment to have lunch with this friend of my time? Maybe not. So you're going to look at the 22, 23, 24 very cautiously. Very cautiously. You're not going to be just overinflated anymore. Okay? And if you think you are control of it, forget it, because it can change on a dime overnight. You wake up the next day, it's all changed. That's what you're going to see going forward 23 till we get through 24. And even though there's a primary and an election this year, you still have all this stuff. You're still going to have all this stuff because it will affect it. Nothing's going to really change what you want, where you get into more rational behavior and more enlightenment and more thinking rather than reacting, protesting, and barbarians until till late 2024, 25. So I hope this gives you just an idea going forward of what's ahead. And so don't be complacent. Don't just sit back and let somebody else take care of this, because that's complicit. You know, it took in World War II with Hitler, it had a lot of the Germans were complicit because they never said anything. They never did anything to stop it. They just assumed it would go away or be fine, or they brought the Kool-Aid, they drank it. And so just because it's loud, don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of loud and fear. But eventually, we will get very, very tired of it. We're getting tired of it. We really want that graciousness to come back. So we want Diogenes to bring us back, the person who has the grace. And that's what's missing right now. And we need to really behave it and do not take things for granted anymore. Not anymore. Thanks so much. I hope I didn't depress you all. But anyway, it's just being on your toes, paying attention, and don't think the past is prologue to now, because it isn't. This has changed. The day has changed. You're going to see things going forward very differently after 2024. So next 2 years, busy. Careful. Be very careful. Okay. Thanks for listening, watching, and I'll see you the next time. Thank you.